We're going to talk a bit about variables and storing values. When you store a value, you have to have a variable to store that value in. So you can't have one without the other. I'm first going to get you to remember we have done the print instruction. So if I have the instruction print and the answer to 4 plus 5 is, and then I have 4 plus 5, hopefully all of you know the result that this instruction would generate. What about this one? Answer equals 4 plus 5. If we run it, we see the answer to 4 plus 5 is 9. That came from this. So if I take that piece out, what is this piece of code doing? We don't see anything that it's doing, but it is doing things behind the scenes. So what it's doing is it's creating a variable, which is a storage spot for the answer. And I decided that a good name for my variable would be answer because that kind of makes sense. So now if I want to see the result, the answer is answer. What's going to be printed at the bottom? The answer is 9. So that's the type of thing we're looking at in this next section. And I'd just like to go over the questions that you were supposed to have answered to make sure that you understand how they work. These questions, I think, are easier than the questions that you got in the built-in functions section, but variables are very, very important in all programming languages, so I want to make sure you understand them. So x equals 1, that equal sign is not checking to see if things are equal. That's what you call an assignment operator. I keep talking about operators like the addition operator is the same operator symbol as the concatenation operator. So this is an assignment operator, and what it does is it assigns a value to a variable. And always, 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 you find the variable on the left and the value on the right. So here, this instruction is going to take that number 1, that number, and it's going to store it in a variable called x. How about this one? I see a variable on both sides of the equal sign, but we're not comparing those values. We're now taking whatever is stored at x and storing that in y. And then we're going to store 3 in x. So the number 1 is now what y is going to get, and x gets a 3. So our answer is going to be 4. We're going to print 4, okay? Over here, my constant. Now, a constant value is similar to a variable. And just like in math class, we say the number 2 is a constant because the number 2 is only going to represent 2 things, ever. We're never going to say those 3 things over there are represented by a 2. No, those are 3, they're represented by a 3. So a constant value, so my constant equals 1, is going to assign the value 1 to my constant. And there's nothing to stop us from changing that value and assigning a value 2 to it, which is not very good to do. So how do you keep from using your constants like they're variables? Notice that my constant is all uppercase letters. If you see all uppercase letters, that should trigger you don't ever want to change this value. You're never going to assign a new value to it. You can use my constant somewhere, but don't assign a new value. Once it's assigned a value, it is never given a different value. So even though we know here we will assign a new value, the interpreter, the Python language lets us do it, but we as the programmer need to remember, all uppercase letters means I don't do this. If we don't want it as a constant, write with lowercase letters and it will be a variable and use it like a variable. If we want it to be a constant, use it like a constant and show it's a constant in all uppercase letters. So variables, all lowercase letters. Constants, all uppercase letters. Next one. If I take this code, I copy it, I jump over to my Python panel, I put it in. Notice the word for is in a different color and it's bold. That's because it's a reserved word. We haven't learned about it yet, but down the road you're going to learn about the word for and what it does as an instruction. So you can't use it to represent a variable because it's already got a built-in instruction for Python, okay? So this will generate an error message. Can't use for. If you change that to FOUR, then you'd be all set. But FOR is a reserved word. Okay, this program, you have the value 10 being assigned to X, the value 6 being assigned to Y. And then that value 6 is being used to generate a new answer for the value Y. So 6 plus 2 is 8, and now Y will be assigned the value 8. So 6 is gone. It's just lost, okay? So now 10 minus 8 assigns the value 2 to Z, which is what we print. This is very strange. My string, it is written, it kind of looks like an integer, but it's not because they're using quotation marks around it, which turns it into a string. But then the next line of code, either the programmer forgot about the quotation marks or just decided, hey, I'm going to do something really weird here, and I'm just going to switch everything. It's no longer a string, so the variable doesn't make sense anymore. And it's now an integer. So my string, which is the integer 4, multiplied by 4 is 16, and 16 will be printed. If that second line right here was removed, so if I take this, I'm going to throw it into my Python panel and run it, you can see it's 16. But if I take this out, do you know what that will do? Remember the overloaded operator here? What is it going to do? Any ideas? 4, 4, 4, 4. So now the string 4 is repeated. Remember, it's overloaded for multiplication and a repeat, depending on whether you're using a string or all numeric. Okay, so you're going to get 16 because that line is there. If you look at this set of instructions, the variable names begin with numbers. 1 number, 2 number, 1 number, but you can't do that. The Python interpreter just won't let you do that. You can't create a variable name and an identifier for it, which is what a variable name is called. You can't start it with a number. It has to start with lowercase letters. You can include underscores, you can include numbers, but they can't be at the beginning, okay? You have to start with lowercase letters. So that's an error message. Now here, notice there's an uppercase T here. Well, that's just wrong because variables should be all lowercase letters. And if you look down here, you've got total with all lowercase letters. So these two are different. Now, although this would, if I take this, let me show you. If I make this a lowercase t, this runs. If I make this an uppercase T and also make this an uppercase T, it also runs and you get the same result. But it's something that might throw the programmer off because You're not supposed to be mixing up uppercase and lowercase. All uppercase means it's a constant value. All lowercase means it's a variable. Don't mix them. So here you've got a typo. So there's going to be an error message. And over here, you've got one variable with an uppercase. So it's not going to create an error message here. And then cost equals 3. Oh, no, cost is now 5. 3 is gone. Total equals 1. Well, this is a different total from that total. So far, no error messages will be generated, although there's still that typo. And down here, uh-oh, there's a typo again. So 10 times 5, and you're going to get 50. There's also something missing right here. There are two words, no underscore to join them together. So there are two separate variable names, but nothing to do with them. So error message. Here, x is going to take the value 2. 3 is a constant. You can't make a 3, whatever's in y, and there is no value for y, so this line just does not make any sense at all, so you'll get an error message. So I hope that you understood everything here. If you didn't, send me an email or reply with a private message or a posting on this video post in the classroom with your messages and your questions. And that way you're going to be one step closer to doing the quiz on storing and using information.